Ask it live, Conor.
Oh no.
Good evening.
Good evening. We are the Raw Paramedics, and you are a wonderful audience, and we love you. And we love the people on Patreon who contribute to us on a monthly basis. Thank you very much. Patreon.com/Raw Paramedics. And we love our people who support us around the world. Believe it or not, people listen to this drivel around the world on the podcast. You can get the podcast on every podcast medium you can think of: Spotify, Apple, you name it. Anne-Marie Brocky gets the prize for being first in, and we get the prize for being the last in because it's 1904. So apologies, guys, but we're here at last.
Yeah, it was sort of my fault. I'm going to fess up. This was my fault. These two guys that way were absolutely on it. But I've just come back from Nottingham University talking to the veterinary students, and it was great. So
tell us about that, Brent. Tell us about that.
So they're doing a nutrition week for all of their students, and looking at launching projects that they need to talk about. They're talking to all, whether it be a kibble company, all of the sponsors, all vegan foods and that side of things. They've got to make an informed choice themselves about appropriate ways to call. So they called us. Well, they called the RFVS and asked if I would go and speak, because Nottingham's, believe it or not, relatively local to me, 2 hours away. And so it was great. So we've got an opportunity to stand up and just have an open conversation. So sort of obviously did how to try and make it responsible, and then a lot of just getting them some more impassioned about nutrition and why it's so important to owners and why we can avoid the amount of medicine use. Nottingham have just done their own study, very much like Dog Risk, on the effects of raw on atopy, finding very similar results. Reports of it being as good as Apoquel, and looking at the medicines. I mean, what sparked them off to looking at it is when they looked at the diets that they were on. Out of the, I think it was 1,200, 1,300, something like that. I only saw it briefly. There were 394 on raw feeding.
Amazing. Listen, mate, will you bring us that study when it's published? I presume it's not published yet.
Hopefully, they're going to bring it as a poster to the RFVS conference. So I will look forward to seeing it there. Okay. So that would be amazing. And Nick, come on, tell us about you. This epic flight to somewhere over the other side of Europe.
I will absolutely tell you about that. But just on the subject of talking to universities, every year I go to Glasgow University and speak or I do a Zoom because of the thing. And it's really good. So you've got Nottingham University. Hopefully that's going to be a recurring invitation. I go up to Glasgow. So therefore we need to say, Edinburgh, where are you? Liverpool, where are you? Cambridge, where are you? Surrey, where are you?
Oxford.
Bristol, where are you? And
is there a veterinary department in Oxford?
No, there's not.
No,
Cambridge.
No.
Very slack. So universities, if anybody knows anybody at the universities who we can talk to try and show what's been done at Nottingham and what's been done at Glasgow for many years, actually. Well done, Glasgow. We would be all of us would be very happy to go along and delight and entertain the vet students.
I'm surprised Nottingham. I missed the start of that, Brent, so I'm so sorry. I was changing my earphones. I didn't hear it. So something exciting is happening in Nottingham, but I'm surprised because isn't Knight the professor of nutrition in?
I think he's at Lincoln. I think he's at Lincoln, isn't he? I think he's at Lincoln.
It's not Nottingham. Yeah. They used to have Mike Davies, who's now working down in Dorset. And actually, I discovered this is really interesting. There's Nikki Kamak, and hi if you're out there, Nikki. Did a little presentation and was talking about the number of board certified nutritionists in America. And then there's this thing about the RCVS that if you're a specialist, you are supposed to have a diploma in your specialism in order to be called a specialist.
Yeah.
Just go and look, everyone, on the RCVS website for the only person who claims to be a specialist in canine clinical nutrition.
Okay.
And
see if she has got a diploma.
No, she's not even on there. So all of the board certified people, of which there's only a handful in the UK, are not actually on that website at all.
Wow.
But the one person who is doesn't have the qualification.
Right.
Oh, we don't like
juicy.
That. Oh, that is juicy. Okay. For those that didn't follow the bit about Nottingham, when I said Knight, the professor, he's the guy that pushes the vegan pet food on the world, and so anytime you see a piece on nutrition in the Guardian
he used
about
to go
pets,
to Nottingham University. I think.
Yeah, there was definitely some connection to Nottingham. Okay, that's very good. Nick,
for some reason, they wouldn't allow me to debate alongside him. They had him yesterday. There was a degree of separation, and I can't understand why.
They should just put the two of you in a big swimming pool full of beans and just see what happens.
See who wins. Vegan beans. Yeah,
that's what this color is. It's bean juice.
Carnivore against a veganivore. Nick, you had a bit of drama in the air. Did you? What happened?
We had some drama in the air, quite literally. Conor, you've got some important news, but I'm just going to bore you with this incredible tale. Can you remember that film? What was it where there was the Siamese cat and the dog and the English bull terrier had to find their way home? The Great Adventure, the Great Journey, the Wonderful Journey. What was it? Brandon, because he's ancient. He knows the movie. He's ancient like me. Yeah. Do you know the movie? Guy, does anybody know the movie? Come on, guys. You've got to back me up here. It was a Disney movie, wasn't it? Anyway, it was this epic journey where they had to cross the Rockies and the Andes and the Australian desert and everything, and they found their way home, and everybody
incredible journey.
And that was it. That was Ellie and I. Okay, so very briefly, this is the show. So we got up at 3 a.m. on Thursday morning to get to, I kid you not, to get to Riga, which is in Latvia. Okay, Latvia is kind of just below Finland. Okay, I didn't even know where it was as well. Latvia, it's a wonderful place, beautiful people, amazing food, great, really, really good, worth visiting. Riga, beautiful. But I didn't know where it was because I am an ignoramus. Anyway, we had two flights, one to Amsterdam and the Amsterdam to Riga. We were meant to be there for morning coffee about 11 o'clock. And we thought, great, we'll have a bit of morning coffee, then we'll have a good long lunch and everything will be great. We actually arrived 19 and a half hours later into Riga after going from Bristol to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Denmark, Denmark to Sweden, Oslo, and then finally from Oslo to Riga. And for 10 hours of those 19 hours, we did not know whether we were going to get to Riga or not in time for me to be on stage on Friday morning in order to talk to 63 vets. This is amazing. So Latvia, 1.5 million people, right? And they can field 63 vets in a room to listen to a talk, me warbling on about raw food for an entire day. Nobody fell asleep, which was absolutely brilliant. And so if you multiply that up, we've got about 70 million people in the UK, and therefore the UK equivalent would be about 2,400 vets in a room listening to raw food. So go Latvia. They are streets ahead. So on day one, spoke to the vets. Brilliant. Professional. They got it. They totally got it. And a third of the audience were feeding raw anyway. So of 2,400, that would be what? 800 of those vets would have been feeding raw as an equivalence. On the second day, I spoke to the general public, and there was again about 62 people in the audience, and the questions they were coming out with. One woman said, how can we modify the zinc copper ratio in diets?
Ooh. Is that the first question?
And I thought that was the second question on the board.
And your answer was?
And the answer was just feed great food and everything will take care of it.
NHS, nuts, herbs, and seeds.
Don't challenge me with that stuff.
Nuts, herbs, and seeds. That's what Nick always says.
We had a spectacular day. I just did, you know, just simple stuff, but the questions and the atmosphere and everything. So, my salutations, my greetings to all of those people who were there. I talked about Raw Pet Medics a lot, and so I hope some of those guys are going to be on the show tonight. So greetings if any of our Latvian colleagues are here. Anybody in the Raw Food family, greetings to you. So.
Awesome. Nice. I had a drama a few days ago. I was speaking to a group in Australia. Have you been speaking to Matthew Murr, either of you?
Yeah.
If Matt Murr, you have. Has he
great.
not? Did he tell you what happened? No, he didn't tell you what happened because he's too much of a gentleman. I would have told on him straight away. So large group of trainers in Australia, APDT, the Pet Dog Trainers Association, and you know, I'm lying in bed and my phone rings and I'm like, who's ringing? To put it on silent. I'm asleep, you know. And Thursday night, and then one of the kids cries, and I wakes me up, and then I see 4 missed calls on my phone. I went, ooh, that's not good. And then there was a text message saying, Conor, where are you? You're supposed to be on half an hour ago. And I'm like, God. What?
Oh, not again.
Yeah, no.
Conor.
I swear to God, I checked that so many times. I thought it OCD. I was like, it's definitely on at 9 o'clock on Friday. Okay. I had the hours went the opposite way.
For everybody who's watching this, we all know what to get Conor for Christmas. I would like you to send him all
what
you
What's
send
the solution?
him.
What's
and then
solution?
we're gonna laugh after Christmas to see if he's received what everybody thinks you need in order to get online on time.
And that's so then I have to agree at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. They said, so can you do 5 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like lying there going, well, maybe I can get a few hours sleep. I'm just lying in bed like this for a few hours. So I got up and had like 2 or 3 coffees. Then I was a jittery mess. And then I'm on at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh my God. I think it went all right. Matt was doing a lot of the talking, and Sarah Fisher took over some of my space. But anyway, terrible. Look, there's one thing I want to do before we get to time, and if we get it today at all, if we get to it, there's something I want to tell people about. It was supposed to happen today, but had to tweak. And when you tweak, it puts it on another 24 hours. But we have a study. An attempt at a study. Okay, we are doing a study, and it's going to kick off tomorrow. You've heard of Wiley Vets in the UK, and they have an enormous number of vets working for them, and they've great access to dry and raw fed dogs. And we, myself and a few others, and Rich, who's the director in there, and Vicky Adams, who is a top veterinary epidemiologist who's highly published and just awesome at doing studies. They can do a great study between them, and they can just look back retrospectively at the last year and compare a big group of raw-fed dogs and a big group of dry-fed dogs. How did they get on? How do they compare? How often do they go to the vet? For what? And a number of other things that are recorded. Very simple stuff, guys. The data is there. And we are putting that together, and we're going to crowdfund for that study. So I kind of just wanted to say to people that, like, the reason most of us are feeding real food to their dogs is because at some stage a bit of science was done that probably convinced us. Very few of us jump based on an anecdotal story of somebody that talked to us on the beach. A lot of us are encouraged by like Habib or me or anyone on RPM here when we do the talking and we get a study and we beat a bit down with people's necks. Look at the results of this. And we've only got a small handful of those studies, 4, 5, 6 studies, most of them produced by Helsinki, Dog Risk in Helsinki University on a shoestring. And so we use those studies, and they're very, very useful for getting the public to change. And when the public see these studies, they're smart and they know the truth when it's presented to them, which is one of the reasons why you're not allowed to debate science in public anymore. And so clearly the market is responding. The UK, 20-25% of them stuffing real food into their pets now. And it's not because the veterinary sector is pushing that message. But the vets will change when enough of these studies are gathered and presented to them. It's a fact. It's just a certain critical mass of these studies have to be met before most vets will kind of come on board. And so we need to get this study done, guys. It's so cheap. People think science and research is expensive. It's not. It's so simple. 40 grand is all we need to get this study done. And we have have endorsements from all of us here, and it's going to be Habib and Becca are going to get behind it, and we'll get Helsinki to do it, and we're going to get all the kind of raw feedy nuts to say, look, we've got to get a bit of help. Price of a cup of coffee, as we say, for us, but this time maybe directed at this study. We also want to talk to your raw dog food manufacturers, so your pet shops, anybody that profits from these studies coming out. These studies rise the tide for all those guys, okay? So if wherever you get your pet food, I want you to send, the study comes out at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm going to be beating you to death with this for the next week or two. And wherever you get your pet food from, I'd like you just to share this study and the page that it's on. It's on experiment.com. It's going to be coming out tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning Irish time. And I just want you to share it with them. Say, look, guys, this is where we get this. If we get this out, it's called citizen science, okay? Or public science. It's science by the people, for the people. This is the stuff that matters. So instead of complaining and what can we do to change, you can get studies like this off the ground. We'll find out who's healthier, who costs more to own. We'll get more people feeding real food. And that's the way to win the row. So I really hope, guys, you'll all get on board. Thank you for that promotional bit of time there, lads. And we will start really pushing this tomorrow morning.
Conor, just say again exactly where they need to go to contribute.
Oh, they'll hear.
Sure everybody will be keen.
Yeah, experiment.com is where you're going to find the study. It'll be the most expensive study on there. Most people gather 4 or 5 for preliminary analysis, where you just have a look at data. We are, for 40 grand, going to get the study done and publish it. It's going to be published. So that will be on experiment.com. The exact link I'll send out when it's live, and you can actually donate on it, because if I send it out before that, people will click and it'll come to a dead end. And so it'll be live tomorrow at 9 o'clock morning. I'll put it up on RPM and Dogs First, and I'll share it amongst all of us, and hopefully get the vets on RFVS to give it a bit of a push. And so can't be too hard to raise 40k, guys. There has to be 40,000 of us that'll just give €1, so let's see if Habib and Becker sprinkle a bit of fairy dust on it, and we'll see if what effect 8 million followers can have on something like this. I mean, because I want to see if it happens again. Then it's like, okay, Helsinki University, they could do studies for 20 grand. I mean, she's like, 20 grand, I'll get that study. 20,000, it's nothing. People think research costs millions and millions and billions. It's not at all. The really meaningful works are just comparisons of populations that have already been done. What is like the people that get the treatment, the people that don't. Compare them. Very simple. So look, I'm very animated by it. I really want it to work, so let's see what happens.
And Cheryl's on board, so Cheryl's going to be paying half of that.
She's loaded. Nice one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cheryl. Excellent. That's going to help. Lovely.
I think is that a misinterpretation of her declaration? I know it just
fully on board. Maybe it means drunk in wherever she's found or something like that. But guys, who's going to start us off? I'm surprised there's no
you off. I'm going to kick you off, boys, because I'm going to read you the ingredients of Hill's kibble, and then I'm going to read you the ingredients of a Royal Canin, and then I'm going to read you the ingredients of Rice Krispies by Kellogg's. Right, here you go. This is Hill's. Get this. This is Hill's Science Plan Light Large Breed Adult Dog Food with Chicken. Now, if that isn't a mouthful in more ways than one, I don't know what is. But here's the ingredients. Well, I'm going to give you the analytical constituents: protein, blah; fat, blah; crude, pride, omega fatty acids, crude ash, calcium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, magnesium, vitamin A, vitamin D3, vitamin E, vitamin C, beta carotene, L-carnitine, and then metabolizable energy. The additives are iron, iodine, copper, manganese, zinc, and selenium. No mention of any B vitamins, including B1. Now, if we look at the same from Royal Canin, who thankfully call their food medium adult, which it makes things a lot easier to understand. Thank you very much, Royal Canin. But they say that their analytical constituents: protein, fat, crude ash. They don't add ash, by the way. It's when they burn it to get rid of all the carbon-based stuff.
What's left over after burning?
Yeah, exactly.
All the minerals.
Okay, and then they've got and it's even less. It's protein, fat, crude ash, crude fiber, omega-3 fatty acids. That's their analytical constituents. Their additives are vitamin A, vitamin D3, iron, iodine, copper, manganese, zinc, selenium. No mention of B vitamins. We then go to
That's weird.
Rice Krispies. So here's a little quiz. What's the first ingredient in Rice Krispies?
Ooh.
Gentlemen.
Oh, barley flour.
Surely. No, surely not. In
Malt
Rice
flour.
Krispies. Surely
Come
it
on,
should
guys.
be rice.
Rice. It's rice.
It was too obvious. It had to
Too
be
obvious.
rice.
The second ingredient is malt flour.
Okay. The second okay, so that's pretty obvious. Apart from Conor, it's pretty obvious. So here's just getting a little bit more into the weeds. What is the second ingredient? And this
Malt
I
flour.
find stunning. The second ingredient in Kellogg's standard Rice Krispies. You're welcome to guess.
Salt, sugar, barley flour.
Sugar.
Yeah, these guys got it. I think there's some people out there with the box in front of them, Fiona. Just like
just being smart asses.
But look at this. I think this is actually a good answer. I think air.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
What's that? I can't see it. I'm on the Rice Krispies page.
Sorry, air.
Right.
Air is the second biggest ingredient.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's really nice. Okay, but
look, and Cheryl's in with Snap, Crackle, and Pop. That's the first, second, and third
I always hated
ingredient.
them. I always hated those two. I don't know why.
Okay, so let's look at the mins and vits in Rice Krispies. This is just as a comparison. Obviously, you can't live on Rice Krispies forever, but would you like to live on the Royal Canin offering or the Hill Science Plan offering? And they stuff it with omega-6, and we know how hideous those things are. Anyway, back to Rice Krispies. Vitamins and minerals: iron as ferric phosphate, niacinamide.
Niacin.
Oh, that looks nice. So it's essentially niacinamide, vitamin B6, pyridoxine hydrochloride, vitamin B12, B1. They do actually add thiamine hydrochloride, folic acid, vitamin D3, and vitamin B12 in order to fortify it, because they've absolutely stripped the original rice ingredient of all the goodness.
And the germs come out.
What's ironic is that they strip it out and they then make a feature of the fact that they have to put this goodness back because they've stripped it out in the first place. Now that is marketing, gentlemen. Anyway, so what I'm saying is
what are you saying, Nick?
Do add it. They do add B1. Sorry, here we go. This is me getting ranty. They add B1.
Conor, we're going to take you off. You're going to be like that.
Add B1. They add B1 to Rice Krispies, but our friends at the food corporations can't be bothered to put it into our dogs' diets. And I'm really
surprised. I'm surprised that they could be putting in something like, in those ingredients, they could put in something like brewer's yeast, which would be higher in B, because I'd be very surprised they don't put in thiamine. It's the one that's smashed by processing. And so they'd be ultra sensitive to thiamine. And I would be very surprised if there wasn't an ingredient in there that was known to be high in B1 and they lashed it in. Brewer's yeast is often one of them. That's the cheaty way to get in all the Bs. But because I'd be surprised when you look at reviews of pet food, there was like from 2009 to 2013, just 4 years, there was 5 enormous recalls of pet food for vitamin issues. There was actually 9, and 5 of the 9 were due to inadequate B1, inadequate thiamine. So as a result, Markovich in 2014 took it upon themselves to examine 90 pet foods sold in the US, and 12 of them were well below the minimum protocol set by AFCO. 12 of the 90. So thiamine deficiency is rife in pet food, and there's been a number of issues since AFCO state. It's in inverted commas, this is AFCO 2008 who set the regulations. Because processing may destroy up to 90% of the thiamine in the kibble, allowance should be made to ensure the minimum nutrient level is met after processing, as if you wanted your dog to have the minimum. So there would be an awful lot of dogs. And that is before we consider what B1 is needed for. Thiamine is pivotal to carbohydrate metabolism. to glucose metabolism and a number of different stages of it. And so if you are eating a high carbohydrate diet, you are known to be more deficient in B1. And so this is a mega dual problem on top of all the other things that will go wrong. Antimicrobials, annihilating the gut flora, which will upset your thiamine, kind of how much you're absorbing, all that sort of stuff. But just the direct issue of eating a high carbohydrate diet and not eating a high B1 diet is a huge problem that the West is having. And so this just led me on to one more little thing while I'm on a roll. I had a look at the thiamine levels, the thiamine deficiency levels in the UK, and they're surprisingly high, but they're higher in older people. So the reported prevalence in the UK, according to Oxford, ranges from 8 to 31% for elderly people living at home, and from 23 to 40% for those living in nursing homes are deficient in thiamine, which is a massive, massive problem when the studies show large doses of thiamine are so effective for things like Parkinson's disease, and great number of studies on that. So yeah, I just thought all that was very interesting. I wonder what state the poor old dogs are in. So I just, bloody hell, that's not a good thing, is it?
Bren, where are you on thiamine? What are your thoughts, mate?
So, well, I mean, if you look at some of the conditions that they're associated with, I mean, cardiovascularly, there are certainly some diseases that are reported. Neurologically is probably the main ones where you've got the peripheral neuropathies, particularly that they report on on the human side. So this is going to happen on the canine side. But I do sometimes wonder just how common this is. There's lots of people. We're going to talk a little bit about thiaminase in a moment, but I think a lot of people sort of go, oh my God, this is really, really important. We've got to get this vitamin, understood and into the diets. But actually, clinically, how much do we see that deficiency? If you're feeding, especially on the raw side, if you're feeding it, if it's in the raw materials that we're giving in enough, does it need to be fortified into the diet? Yeah, I get it in kibble and processed foods, but is it because we're seeing so many fresh foods within our practices that actually we're not seeing necessarily those level of problems? Or is it that we're misdiagnosing, all those CDRMs? Is it that actually there is an element of thiamine that needs to be added in alongside the vitamin E, vitamin C, the EPAs, DHAs that would help in those situations, getting the testosterone right, as we were talking about last week, getting the LH levels down. There's so many multifactorial things that go on with this. I think just saying thiamine is responsible for X, Y, and Z, well, actually it's about 26 conditions, I think is maybe a bit misleading. Although we did have one follower actually saying that their dog was diagnosed, I think it was in South Africa, with thiamine deficiency. And that's the only one case where they said definitively that's what it was. And I believe it's because of the fish that they were feeding to that patient.
Because there's a few ways that you don't get enough thiamine if you're not having enough in your diet. And Jane Eastwith says what are natural sources. So basically a raw food diet. You've got meat and bone and
pork, fish,
and green vegetables and
organ
fish
meats.
You will get loads and loads and loads and loads of B1. But so there's three main ways that I can see. Number one is you're not getting enough in your diet. Number two is you are getting enough in your diet, but you've got a gut problem, and so you're not absorbing the B1. I'm just talking about B1, not all the others. Yeah, as in the B complex that you can find, B complex. And number three is that if you've got kidney disease, you can leak B1 and other B vitamins. And it strikes me that if you've got B1 deficiency, you may have other B vitamin deficiency. So I'm thinking if you've got even the slightest worry about the B vitamins, then get some B complex. It's got to have B1 and all the rest and B12. Yeah, because brewer's yeast, for example, doesn't have B12 in it. So you have to just be a little bit careful about that. But because it's water soluble, you can't go wrong. You really have to take 300 tons of it every day. I exaggerate, in order to, to get an excess because it's water soluble. Any excess you'll just pee out, so it self-regulates. So it's a very, very, very safe vitamin to give. So if in doubt, get some B complex, get some brewer's yeast in order to get your B1, B6, B5, and all the rest of it. So that would be my thoughts. The other one was there's a big difference between adequate B1 and deficiency, but there's this gray area in between where you've got subclinical manifestations of symptoms which aren't quite beriberi, i.e. frank deficiency, because frank deficiency is pretty rare. But I would say, as the human studies show, Conor, that you've just said about old people's homes and so many people, there's a lot of people who are not quite getting adequate. They're not on the ground, but they're not adequate, and they're definitely not in the right zone. So I think we need to think about that with vitamins, is that just because you're not deficient doesn't mean you've got the right levels.
Yeah, it's like coming into winter. If you're elderly, it's not like slightly too little vitamin D is not good news. You want to get that up, and so you're not going to be down at zero because you'd be in dire straits then. But on your way down, you're going to be more prone to sickness. There's a lot of different reasons why you can be insufficient in time, and lack of it in the diet. So POWs used to suffer very all the time because they fed them white rice, and when you take out the husk and the germ from the rice, which is lots of thiamine, they would have done fine on that. White rice is terribly deficient in it, so they used to suffer terribly. Actually, the disease itself, I just love this dude. A Polish physician discovered this in 1912, and his name was Kashmir Funk. And I just thought, what a name, Kashmir Funk. Oh God, I wish that was my name, Kashmir Funk. But yeah, so the POWs used to suffer it all the time. And from one of these stories I was reading about it, it's from an old Sinhalese word meaning I can't. That's what beriberi means. And so you can have two different types. You can have like a wet type, and you can have a dry type. And a wet type is like a circulatory issue, and you're going to get a lot of swelling and stuff. And the dry type gets really bad pain, and it's the dry beriberi that the POWs used to get. And so I can't would be and neurological pain. And I said it was absolutely awful. They couldn't walk with it. So beriberi was the lack of B1, but this not just it being lacking in the diet. You can have things like a lot of the raw fish. I have a chart there that I'll share on Facebook later on to show. Bren alluded to earlier on. Certain fish contain an enzyme called thiaminase. And so those ones down the left-hand side, you can't be feeding that to dogs long term because it'll nobble all the thiamine in the diet, and then you don't absorb any. The fish on the right do not contain thiaminase, so your dog can eat more of them relatively happily. So, from salmon down to a few others that we like to use. So you have to be careful of, I think sardines are okay as well. So if your raw dog food manufacturer uses whitefish, it is important to ask which whitefish is being used in that. So the type of fish, but also coffee will do it to you, and tea, they also contain thiaminase, but your dogs aren't drinking that. GI issues, meds like flagyl and diuretics, kidney disease and diabetes, excessive exercise. So if you're hard working your dogs, you're going to be deficient in thiamine. It might be something to consider. Infection, pregnancy, lactation, alcoholism if your dog's an alcoholic, hyperthyroidism in cats, and any impairment to your liver or antioxidant system can cause issues as well. So there's a whole lot of things but I mean, do people ever check for thiamine? Would a conventional vet check? Was that something you would ever check in? No? How do you check?
Very limited. It's one of those. I'm pretty sure there is a blood test for it, but I think it's one of those that, somebody is not going to go down those lengths. I mean, I was looking at LH after last week. We were looking at LH testing. In fact, just before last week when we were talking about it, and some of these tests, yes, it's doable. But, who wants to pay 700 quid to check whether LH is responsible for their dog's illness? Has it gone through the roof? That's the problem with some of the rarer tests. Suddenly prices go up through the roof. Really interesting. I've just posted up there one of the articles about thiamine and its generation. So de novo generation, yet again. this is where bacteria produce the de novo vitamins for our animals, and then we consume those. So it's really interesting when I was looking at the companies that are producing modern foods now. So they can produce 32 cows worth of protein an hour through fermenters. Okay, literally they are fermenting bacteria which will produce an amino acid spectrum which is similar to a cow or whichever creature you want to pull up, okay, as an amino acid spectrum. And they're pumping those out, and then they're saying this is as good as 32 cows worth of protein. What they're missing is the fact that it is so hard to keep that nutrient profile right that they don't accidentally have a contamination and die off of that fermentation process, that actually all of the extra vitamins and minerals conjugated to those amino acids are not in that. So just to reiterate, that protein is not the same as the grass finished cow that's come off the field. Okay, so yes, it's great that they're looking at sustainable ways of bringing it on, but there is still that deficiency in where these vitamins are in that process. They are playing at making up the rumen, but they just haven't got the technology to get it right, to mix all of those other things in there in the right proportions.
No doubt. Yeah.
So great. Where are you at then with how often have you seen thiaminase actually being an issue?
I'll tell you about thiaminase, because I learned about thiaminase a very long time ago and the way I think of it, which is not very advanced, but the way I think of it is that dark brown oily fish are the most likely contenders for thiaminase. And if therefore you're giving, because Fiona was asking a question, can we give them every now and again? And what I was suggesting, have done for years, is that you use a bit of brewer's yeast on any dark oily fish, and then you've got plenty of thiamine going in, which if there is thiaminase, that will compensate. So what are your workarounds for thiaminase, for oily fish, for...
I don't think surely an occasional feed of something that contains thiaminase. I mean, it's not something that needs to be in every single meal. I mean, you're fine. So if you got your hands on 2 or 3 thiaminase heads of some fish, I wouldn't be worried about it at all. If you're concerned about it, don't feed it with your thiamine containing food and just say, right, that's my thiaminase meal, and your dog eats that for a day or so. It's not going to get in there and disrupt your system and just start nobbling all the thiamine around your body. I personally wouldn't, but that is in naivety. That's not based on anything except there's not going to be fish out there that you eat and suddenly it destroys all your thiamine and makes you sick. Surely not.
And of course, the other, absolutely brilliant workaround, which is variety. Hey, presto, have we not talked about that enough? Okay, but obviously if you're really stuck, then you can look at, using some organ material. If you're really squeamish about adding stuff in, you can even go back to source and look.
Is that sold in UK?
Yeah, you can get this online.
Beef brain.
Yeah, but it's not from the UK.
It's from New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Tested for prion.
Good.
Full of glyphosate, but no prion.
Yeah.
No, they do actually tox screen it. So that's the end.
Yeah, cool. I know.
I checked.
I had another little doozy here. A lot of the issues. So, your dog's got more prone to gut disease if you're on dry food. As studies show, two studies now, and so we know that. And I just had a look at the rise of gut disease in humans. Like thiamine deficiency was a big thing, because as you get older, why do you get more deficient in thiamine when you're older? Because your diet gets simpler, and one of the reasons they think the diet gets simpler is because your gut flora starts to narrow as you get older, and so you have less call for different food groups. That's one of the reasons why your appetence might go down I'm sure there's many other reasons. As you get older, you just don't want to eat very bits and pieces, whatever. But another reason is gut disease. So listen to this this is from whatever university, Washington University. 3 paragraphs here on the rise of the worrying rise of IBD in Western societies. Eating a Western diet impairs the immune system in the gut in ways that could increase infection and inflammatory bowel disease, according to a new study from Washington University in 2023. The study, using thousands of mice and people, showed that a diet high in sugar, dry food, and fat causes damage to Paneth cells, immune cells in the gut that help keep inflammation in check. When these Paneth cells aren't functioning properly, the gut immune system is excessively prone to inflammation, putting people at risk of bowel disease. And then it's becoming a more globally accepted phenomenon in Western diets and lifestyles due to their high carb tendencies. So I just thought, wow, this is a really big problem. So as you get older, I don't think that protein and fats and stuff, it's a higher carbohydrate diet. When I just look at my mum, it is a higher carbohydrate diet. It's just, oh, what did you have for tea? I had a couple of pieces of toast. It's like, you had a couple of pieces of toast. Would you put an egg on it or something? Her diet is just so plain. And I look at that. And where is she getting her B1 from? Do you know, she would sit there and she doesn't sit there. She's not bloody decrepit. She's got a more active life than I have. But like, you know, so it's very interesting. That goes undiagnosed. And a person that put me onto thiamine deficiency, she had a collie that got spooked when she was 9 months old at a critical behavioral period in the dog's life. Got spooked by 2 goofy dogs. And as a result, this collie got agoraphobia, wouldn't go out of the house. And this girl's well experienced with collies and she knows what to do. But she said she started Googling vitamin deficiencies and agoraphobia just to try and find an answer. And that's when she stumbled across thiamine deficiency and a couple of books and a couple of articles. She goes, look how prevalent it is. She got onto the main guy that sponsors this. There's a number of resources, by the way. If anybody's suffering Parkinson's, there's a whole website dedicated to thiamine use in Parkinson's. It's called highdosethiamine.org. And they give you all the studies. Another guy there, eonutrition.co.uk. But both of them talk about mega dose thiamine. And they said that the longer you are out of thiamine, the more you have to stay on mega doses, that it never gets back up to normal. It seems that you just have to keep taking these. And they said that the doses being put out there by the powers that be are like vitamin D, not touching the sides of where an older person that discovers they're B1 deficient needs to get to, which is mega high doses. Isn't it funny that vitamin D and B1 seems so bloody beneficial, so bloody easy, to take these things that we know, 30 to 40% of elderly UK people are deficient in B1. I bet you it's the same for D. And they will have a very strong protective effect for your health if you get these simply cost you tuppence. And these aren't the lessons that we get coming into winter. Isn't it very strange that we don't hear
these things? Are cheap. This is the one that we use. B complex contains a bit of everything.
Yeah,
from Metabolics. Give us a shout if you want some. It's easy to get. You can get them online.
They said that the B1 needs to be. They said that when you're doing B1 on its own, this guy EO, whatever his name is, it was when you give B1 on its own, it needs a bit of magnesium because those two things work together. So if you're using it on its own, he gave some. His one was. It's gone now.
This one's got magnesium, choline, and inositol in it.
So I was going to say, is there not a modification of that spidergram for the minerals that actually also includes vitamins and amino acids?
I bet there is.
The uptake
there would be.
Yeah.
If somebody can find that and post it, come on, find it for us, guys. Put it on there.
I really want to find
mutual uptake.
This guy said this guy's favorite was thiamine tetrahydrofurfuryl disulfide, which is one of my favorite thiamines anyway. Obviously, it's even my top 3. Thiamine tetrahydrofurfuryl. What was that? What was that movie, Miss Imelda Hay? Remember that with the brains in the jars? Steve Martin movie. Oh, it was so funny. Miss Imelda Hay. No, okay, it doesn't matter.
No.
Oh, it's very funny. I love a bit of Steve Martin. Okay. Guys, we've got a dash. We're at the end here. So listen, thanks to the lads for joining us. Thanks for listening to us on podcasts wherever you are. Don't forget to give us a rating if you're listening. Thanks to everyone on Patreon.com. We see you all, and we really, really appreciate you being there. Don't forget to check out that study that's going to be posted tomorrow on Dogs First and Nick's page and RPM's page and everywhere else that you're going to see. Don't forget that we've got a show coming up on the 2nd of December in Manchester. Manchester, and we're challenging you to beat the Coneheads and see if you can beat us. And if you do, there's awesome prizes that we started announcing, but you won't beat us because we're too smart. And so tough luck. We're going to keep those prizes for ourselves. Any other announcements, guys, before we hit the road?
Go to Eventbrite.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, great book.
Signed book. Signed. Let me just get to the right page.
It's got 2 covers.
Actually,
okay. Oh, there she is. Lisa.
Got 2 of those. Thanks,
Nice.
Liz.
Lovely,
okay,
lovely.
so that's the 2nd of December. You get the tickets on Eventbrite. It's going to be a morning of entertaining but informative lectures, and then the afternoon we're going to do Q&A, and then we're going to have some fun. We're going to do some doggy nutrition-y quizzes and things like that. So that's going to be amazing, guys. There's loads of really great questions there. So should we just nip over to Patreon and just do a few of those? That would be really cool. And there's a t-shirt draw. The t-shirt draw is closing when, guys? Is it
I think it's 24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Get into the t-shirt draw, and
any tickets bought before the next whatever the deadline is.
I'm really disappointed. I should have actually had, if I'd have had time.
I've got one.
Wearing it.
I'll just go and get it. I'll take that.
In fact, you know what we're going to do? We're going to leave you to just do a little roundup of what we talked about today.
Oh no! What?
And
do you know what I'm
going
to talk about? There you go. You can take a picture of that, everybody. Do you know what I am going to talk about? I was in Aldi there the other day, and they have coffee roots, coffee plant roots, short little things about that size, hard as a hob of hell, and they're only €2. And I thought, what a wonderful chewing item. Now that's going to put the cat among the pigeons, and people will say, Conor, your dogs can't chew on sticks. And I go, well, your dogs can't maybe, but Dudley loves chewing on, a rolling pin when he was a baby was his favourite thing, one solid block of wood, just when he was indoors because I didn't want meaty bones around the place. So I wonder, how does everybody feel about a dog chewing on these coffee roots? Have you seen them? They're like kind of thick as a fist and about that long, like a very, very large fossilized poo, and they're really strong, and Dudley is a serious chewer and he's not breaking it down and he loves it. And I thought, that's great, way better than a plastic bone or a plastic toy or a plastic rope. I mean, surely if little bits of a tiny stick goes in. Isn't coffee bad? Yeah, coffee itself is probably not great. The fruity beans, I wouldn't feed too much of that to my dog. But the coffee root that comes out of that plant, I'm sure is absolutely fine, although I haven't Googled it. But the wood just doesn't splinter. It's just a very, very hard. Anyway, I'm all over it, guys. €2. And so if you don't like meaty bones, but you know, maybe some people show pictures and the dog sitting on the couch eating a meaty bone. And I'm like, why are you letting your dog chew a meaty bone? Oh, look at that. The yellow one's the one I want. I hope I got the yellow one. Oh, that's a nice one. I like that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
RPM live.
Plenty of different options. Have a look.
Lots of different colours, lots of different goodness.
T-mill / Raw Pet Medics.
Something like that, yeah. Thanks for reminding us, Fiona.
Sweatshirts and everything there. So thanks, Fiona.
Cool.
Right.
Amazing.
Guys, wonderful.
Order.
Cool.
Take care.
Talk to you soon.
Move over to Patreon now.
Lovely.
See you soon. Thanks, guys.